And the extra end thing is that's just foolishness in my opinion. If you want to go a shootout, you got to go all 4 players. You just can't have one shot.
Curling now enters the Sports Weekend spotlight.
Brad, I don't want to put too fine point on it, but when I hear maximizing the value and that explanation, I heard TV. I didn't hear a lot about curlers. Over to you.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think all these decisions are based solely on TV, which I don't think is the proper way to go. I think, as Colleen alluded to earlier, a lot of sports go into extra innings or extra time or whatever, and if the product is good enough, the TV is going to make room for it, in my belief. So I don't think we should be catering to just TV, to be quite honest. And I think some of these measures are pretty drastic. And I know for a lot of the top curlers in the Grand Slam and across this country, certainly we're kind of blindsided by, these announcements that came out a couple of weeks ago.
Do you think all of this is just almost a red herring and they're going to turn it around and say, okay, 8 ends, and is that a better option, or is 8 too fast a game? Man,
You know what? I'm not sure if it is a red herring or not. I think if they did go to 8 ends, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I also think that we could speed up the 10-end game. I think there's some areas that we could work on. I don't like the 4 minutes per end. We tried that at the Canada Cup before, and it was just a disaster. I think everybody that played in it felt rushed. And when you get an end with 12 or 14 rocks in play, you can't play that in 4 minutes. You need probably 5 or 6 minutes. So that's why a lot of teams, you bank a minute here and a half a minute there. And then when you have those ends, you could actually take some time. And from a viewer's perspective, having those conversations between the skip and the third and some of that strategy part, that's probably one of the more interesting things in our game.
When I can tell you right now, when Joan Mead, our great CBC producer that did a lot to revolutionize how the television goes, she would, if Don Whitman, Don Duguid, or I would even dare speak when a curler was speaking, she would be, shush, this is the best part. This is where we find out their personalities.
Right.
It's like listening to them in the bedroom, like we're right in there with them in their heads. So a 4-minute end or a 4:15-second end is going to take away all that dialogue and personality. You're going to be like robots out there. It's going to be horrible.
It will. And we're one of the only sports where you can get that in behind the scenes kind of perspective of strategy and what's going on. And I think we don't want to lose that. And with the 4 minutes, you look at a team that's probably a little slower, like even ourselves, but certainly Kevin Cooey, all you're going to see is him running down to the last to throw his last rock in every single end. And
he'll never make it. He's not going to make it. I mean, he's been down to 4 seconds too many times.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
You know what? I think our team would struggle with it on a regular basis. So teams that are a little bit slower than us, I think it's going to be too much. And I don't love that. The tick rule, I like that. We've tried that at the slams, and I think there's some positive aspects to that. And the extra end thing that's just foolishness in my opinion. If you want to go a shootout, you got to go all 4 players. You just can't have one shot. If you get a pick or, oftentimes the skip can go 4 or 5 ends without having thrown a draw. In all likelihood, that skip is going to be the one throwing that shot, and it's just too much at stake. And the thought of even implementing this at the World Championship is just mind blown. I think try it out in a couple of events first before you bring it to a World Championship.
Well, and a lot of these are sort of accepted. The 8 ends at curling club games, for example, you rarely ever get full 8 ends in because play is so slow. So some of this idea of speeding it up, but not to the 4 and 4:15-second end. Anyhow.
Yeah. And I going back to the 8 versus 10 ends, we played 8 ends at the Grand Slam for a long time now, and I think the product is good. Now, having said that, I'm an advocate for 10 ends. I think that the better team is going to win more often. But if the sole purpose is to make this a better TV property and to get us to grow the game internationally in different markets and shortening the game is going to require that, then I think going to 8 ends is a much better move than doing some of these other things like going to 4 minutes or taking the extra end away.
Yeah,
Stay tuned.
I would think you would love an 8N game. You just talked about needing WD-40 to win.
Well,
I think that's another sponsorship possibility for your team.
if they're out there, call us. But yeah, maybe, you know, getting older, the weeks get longer, and you know, I'm probably getting up a couple more years now. My attention span is going to get shorter and shorter too. So,
Right.
But I'm okay with either one. I think, like I said, the Grand Slam has shown that the product's pretty good at 8. But personally,
for the real events, Brad, for the, you know, for the big, the Worlds, the Pryor, the Scotties, please let them.
I don't disagree with you, Colleen. I really don't. But I think if we're going to turn left and go towards these rules, I'd rather go right and go towards 8 ends.
Right.
I could listen to you two all night.